Fire Emblem Path of Radiance is one of my favorite games of all time. From the world, to the story, to the gameplay, everything about it just hits all the right beats for me. Of course, one of the major reasons for this love, and for most Fire Emblem games, is the cast. Path of Radiance has to be one of my favorite casts in all of gaming. This boils down to how charmingly written a lot of them are, and their own personal stories and growth throughout the game. From the tragic folks like Zahark, to the cheerful silliness of Marcia, and to a genuine story to overcome one's own prejudice with Jill. Every character feels like they have a purpose and are either great characters to deep dive into, or are just flat out entertaining. However, in the fanbase there tends to be one anomaly. One character that gets the short end of the stick whenever any discussion of Fire Emblem comes up. Oh, right, I forgot about him. Hold on one moment. There we go. Yeah, Ilyana, at least from what I've seen, tends to be one of the more disliked characters from Path of Radiance. Heroes doesn't help matters, since she's one of the more represented characters from Poor, and she tends to just get boiled down to a hunger joke. A lot of fans only see her as such. A hungry girl where the joke is that she's hungry. But what if I told you that there was more to her? A hidden side to her that many completely overlook. Believe me or don't, but today I'm going to be talking about Ilyana from Fire Emblem Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn. The first time you come across Ilyana is in Chapter 8, right after one of the most tragic events in the game, which can I just say is a very odd timing for one of the silliest characters to be introduced. Either way, she starts on the enemy side, and to recruit her you simply need to talk to her with Ike. This conversation tells us a bit about Ilyana, even if it's not a whole lot. First of all, she was part of the traveling merchants that you just met earlier in this chapter. That includes Mustin, Amy, and twin brothers Daniel and George. It's odd to note that everyone in the group has their own specialty, examples being Mustin, who deals in weapons, and Amy, who deals in recovery items and staves. Ilyana is sort of implied to be their bodyguard, but how is this frail and tiny mage supposed to defend a caravan against bandits? That's the other thing we know, and that's Ilyana looks very weak and frail, which is true. Other than that, it's the usual shtick of recruitment in Fire Emblem, where they repay the kindness by enlisting in your army, and after that she stops being relevant in the story. Thankfully, Tellius has what's known as base conversations, a way for characters to still stay a tiny bit relevant outside of supports. While support conversations can be acquired at just about any time, base conversations are limited to the chapter they appear in, and thus characters can react to what's going on. Ilyana gets one in Chapter 12 and nowhere else. But hey, that should be fine so long as it has a lot to say, right? Well, we do get to know a little bit more about her, even if it's a small amount. The conversation starts with Ilyana getting seasick, her commenting on how often her merchant group would travel by boat. When Ike inquires about how long she has been with them, she tells him she's been in the group for 4 years. She also mentions that back in her own hometown, she tended to rely on a lot of people. The conversation ends with Ike surprised since he's impressed with Ilyana's magical powers, and Ilyana feeling a bit better after that. It doesn't tell us a whole lot, just a tiny bit of background for Ilyana. After that, she's stone cold silent throughout the rest of the game. But that's just fine, so long as her supports are able to carry that weight. First of all, Ilyana gets a total of 5 supports, which is actually pretty good for a Tellius character. More than likely, you get a max of about 3 supports, and even some really important characters like Soren have only 2 supports. First, we'll take a look at her support with Mordecai. Honestly, not a whole lot happens in this support. Mordecai notices how scrawny Ilyana is, he vows to protect her, he gives her money to eat, and then he goes bankrupt. It doesn't tell us a whole lot about the two other than Mordecai is really nice, and Ilyana is always hungry and physically weak, which are things we know already. There's this one line right here that shows she's not all that afraid of dying, but other than that there's not a whole lot of meat in the support. But that's fine, we still got 4 more supports, so let's move on to Mia. And again, it's just a bit more of the same. Though it does show a protective side of Mia and some material for weirdos, it doesn't tell us anything about Ilyana that we don't already know. It has a half-decent joke about fruitcake, and that's about it. Okay, then, Gotri. He's always an entertaining character, and it goes just about how you expect it to go with Gotri and another woman. His endeavors are only successful in the A support, but only because Ilyana wants food and not a date. It's a little comical, but not much else. It does hint about something else regarding Ilyana's character that gets further explained with Zahark's support, so let's get right into that one. And this one is definitely a step up from the last few, since this time around Zahark actually confronts Ilyana about her eating so much. It's honestly really refreshing to see someone react to an outlandish quirk in a realistic manner. The support is mainly about Ilyana trying to get food from Zahark, with him either not noticing or just not falling for it. Not sure which one it is, but if I had to guess, it would be the latter. Either way, the support does show that Ilyana has trouble remembering people's names after they feed her, and after a bit of a talk, she tries to get better about that sort of thing. Which, hey, in Radiant Dawn it shows that she did when she talks to Zahark and Heather. See? Character development. But that's about all you're going to get with these two. But we still have Lucia. Nobody ever uses her, so her support must have something here. Well, it's probably my favorite support from Ilyana. And if you're looking for shipping material, well, the support will scratch that bare surface itch, but it's still not a whole lot. The support gives Ilyana a bit of a training regimen for food, but other than that twist, it's still more the same. Ilyana doesn't even have any boss conversations in a game full of them, and her ending is just a basic thank you and telling us that she's going to stick with Mustin's gang. Is that really it? We still have Radiant Dawn, but it still doesn't give us a whole lot. She shows up in part 1, but other than a few conversations with some returning characters that I've already talked about, she has nothing else in part 1. And in part 3, she has a singular base conversation, which is her being hungry again, with the added bonus of her remembering people's names, but that's really it. In part 3, Ilyana has conversations in the 2 chapters you fight the Dawn Brigade, but all of them in Endgame are just bad. Almost all of them talks about Ilyana being hungry, which, hey, maybe in a very serious part of the game, it's time to drop silly gimmicks. It fares a bit better in the swamp map, since she actually has talks with everyone, and that she's stern with standing with the Grail mercenaries because they're her friends, and that she also doesn't want to fight the Dawn Brigade because they're friends too. It's heartwarming to see this sort of side to Ilyana, but this is about as much as you get. Supports in Radiant Dawn are handled poorly, and a lot of Ilyana's are just her food gimmick again. There are a few that are pretty nice, but still nothing meaty. And lastly, her ending just has her going with the caravan again. And that's it. There's nothing else here. Did I lie to the viewers and pretend there was a lot more depth to Ilyana when there wasn't? Well, yes and no. Ilyana herself isn't deep, or all that interesting outside of a few underutilized concepts. Even with other more comical characters like Marcia or Kieran, they still have a decent amount going on with their characters to intrigue us and to bond with them. Ilyana sorely lacks any of that, so why do I like her so much? She's not deep, she's not intriguing, heck, I don't even find her all that funny. So why? One possible answer is that I'm just heavily nostalgic, and that I like almost every Tellius character because of that nostalgia, but I don't want to think that's it. Ilyana is important for the balance of Tellius. Among a cast that has deep and thought-provoking characters, whether through concept, background, or how they interact with the world, we need characters like Ilyana. Characters that bring the levity. It's why in Three Houses, characters like Alois and Raphael are important. It's why in Sacred Stones, with its bleak world and story, we have characters like Lorachel and Dozla to lighten things up. We need that levity to bring us back when things get too real. That's the real importance of Ilyana. She's a simple character, but she never strove to be anything complex. Ilyana is important to the soul of Fire Emblem, and I don't think I'll ever stop liking her. But of course if you hate her just because she's annoying with all her food talk, that's 100% valid.